Hello everyone! Have you ever felt lost because native speakers talk too fast? Don't worry, just watching or even just listening to this video is enough. In this video, you'll hear real native speech, get a simple explanation, and listen as two podcasters show you how to use it in daily life. Through this process, you'll naturally get more comfortable with native voices. Today's video is a combined episode 3 and 4 from the 1959 classic horror film House on Haunted Hill. It has a spooky atmosphere, but don't worry, there aren't any truly scary scenes. The quality may be old, but it's still fun and great for learning English. And since I'll be making this into a full series, you'll be able to keep enjoying it as we go along. Alright, let's kick things off with some spooky music. Native Sound Part 1. Here we go.
It was my wife's idea to have our guests come in funeral cars. She's so amusing. Her sense of humor is, shall we say, original. I dreamed up the hearse. It's empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows? This is Lance Schroeder, a test pilot, so no doubt a brave man. But don't you think you can be much braver if you're paid for it? And I happen to know that Lance needs the $10,000 I'll give him, if he's brave enough to stay all night. This is Ruth Bridges. You've no doubt read her column in the newspapers. She says her reason for coming to the party is to write a feature article on ghosts. She's also desperate for money. Gambles.
How was it? Could you hear it clearly? This film is about 70 years old, so the sound isn't perfect. Still, it's clear enough to follow, and the story is fun, so it should help with your English. Now, shall we take a closer look together, one step at a time?
It was my wife's idea to have our guests come in funeral cars.
It was my wife's idea to have our guests come in funeral cars. In this line, the speaker is describing something unusual that his wife suggested. The important part here is the use of have. In this structure, have means to arrange for something to happen or to cause someone to do something. So, to have our guests come means to make our guests come or to arrange that they come. Next, look at come in funeral cars. This is striking because funeral cars are normally connected with death and funerals. Here, it's clearly not a normal way for guests to arrive. The wife thought it would be amusing if the guests came in cars usually meant for funerals. So, when we put it all together, the meaning becomes, it was my wife's idea to arrange for the guests to arrive in funeral cars. This shows us two things. First, the special grammatical use of have, to mean arranging for an action, and second, the unusual, darkly humorous imagination of the wife, which helps set the spooky and playful atmosphere of the story.
She's so amusing. Her sense of humor is, shall we say, original.
She's so amusing. Her sense of humor is, shall we say, original. The speaker first says she's so amusing. Now, normally, the word amusing means funny or entertaining, something that makes you laugh. But here, it carries a slightly different tone. It's not just playful or lighthearted. It suggests that she is amusing in an unusual or even strange way. It's almost as if he's saying, she's funny, but in a rather peculiar way. And then he explains it more directly. Her sense of humor is, shall we say, original. The phrase, shall we say, adds a pause, as if the speaker is carefully choosing a polite word. It makes the sentence sound slightly ironic. And the word original here doesn't only mean creative or new. In this context, it also hints at unusual or not what you would expect. So put together, the meaning is something like, she has a sense of humor that is not ordinary. It's unusual, maybe even odd, though in an entertaining way.
I dreamed up the hearse. It's empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows?
I dreamed up the hearse. It's empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows? The speaker says, I dreamed up the hearse. The phrase dreamed up means to invent or to imagine something unusual. So he is telling us that it was his idea to bring in this dramatic image, the hearse. Now let's pause for a moment on the words funeral car and hearse. They are not exactly the same. A funeral car can refer to any vehicle that is part of a funeral procession. Cars for the family, cars for the guests, and also the special car that carries the coffin. A hearse, however, is very specific. It is the long black vehicle designed to carry the coffin itself. So in the earlier line, when the speaker mentioned guests arriving in funeral cars, it sounded humorous and exaggerated, as if everyone would come in those solemn vehicles. But now, when he talks about the hearse, the focus narrows down to the one car that actually carries the dead. This shift makes the mood darker and more suspenseful. Next, it's empty now. That means there is no coffin inside at the moment. But by pointing this out, the speaker creates a sense of foreboding, as if something could fill it before the night is over. Finally, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows? The phrase "who knows" is used when the outcome is uncertain. Here, it hints that something terrible might happen in the house, and perhaps the hearse will not remain empty.
This is Lance Schroeder, a test pilot, so no doubt a brave man.
The speaker is introducing one of the guests, Lance Schroeder. He is described as a test pilot. Now, what is a test pilot? A test pilot is a professional who flies new or experimental aircraft to see if they work safely. It is one of the most dangerous jobs in aviation because they have to fly planes that might have problems or are being tested for the first time. So just by saying he is a test pilot, the narrator is also telling us that Lance must already be courageous. Then the line continues, so no doubt a brave man. The phrase "so no doubt" means there is certainly no question about it. It emphasizes that it is obvious. In other words, because he is a test pilot, of course he must be a brave man.
But don't you think you can be much braver if you're paid for it?
But don't you think you can be much braver if you're paid for it? Right before this line, the narrator said, Lance Schroeder, a test pilot, so no doubt a brave man. That sounded like praise. But immediately he changes the tone with this question. The key expression here is "be much braver." It means to show even greater courage. And it is connected to the phrase "if you're paid for it." That means when someone gives you money to do it. So the question is really saying, yes, Lance is already brave. But don't you think anyone could be much braver if money was offered as a reward?
And I happen to know that Lance needs the 10,000 I'll give him, if he's brave enough to stay all night.
And I happen to know that Lance needs the 10,000. I'll give him if he's brave enough to stay all night. The speaker now reveals something personal about Lance. I happen to know means I happen to be aware, or I just so happen to know as a fact. It gives the impression that the speaker knows a secret about Lance. The secret is that Lance needs the 10,000. This means Lance is in need of money, specifically $10,000. So the story is not just about bravery anymore. It is also about financial pressure, which might push him to take risks. Then the speaker says, I'll give him if he's brave enough to stay all night. The phrase "brave enough to" means having sufficient courage to do something difficult or frightening. Here, the challenge is to remain inside the haunted house for one full night. So the condition is clear. If Lance shows the courage to endure the night, then he will receive the $10,000.
This is Ruth Bridges. You've no doubt read her column in the newspapers.
This is Ruth Bridges. You've no doubt read her column in the newspapers. The narrator now introduces another guest, Ruth Bridges. He says, You've no doubt read her column in the newspapers. Let's look closely at this. The phrase "you've no doubt read" is an expression that means I am sure you have read. The words "no doubt" here emphasize certainty, as if the speaker believes the audience must already be familiar with her. So it is not really a question, it is a statement made with confidence. And what about her column? In a newspaper, a column is a regular article written by the same journalist, often sharing opinions, commentary, or personal views. So when the narrator says this, he is presenting Ruth as someone who is already known to the public through her writing.
She says her reason for coming to the party is to write a feature article on ghosts. She's also desperate for money. Gambles.
She says her reason for coming to the party is to write a feature article on ghosts. She's also desperate for money. Gambles. First, Ruth explains that she came for professional reasons, to write a feature article on ghosts. But then the narrator immediately reveals another truth. She's also desperate for money. The phrase desperate for means being in urgent need of something. It suggests she is not just interested in ghosts. She is also here because she needs money very badly. And then comes the single word, gambles. This is very striking. Instead of giving a full sentence, the narrator throws just one word. This is a dramatic storytelling technique. By saying only gambles, the audience fills in the meaning. She gambles. That's why she is desperate for money.
All right, now that you've heard the explanation, let's listen to the podcaster's review.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're diving into this really captivating audio clip.
Yeah, from the classic film House on Haunted Hill.
Exactly. And our mission really is to pull out 4 practical, sort of natural English expressions.
And show you how they're actually used, woven into a story.
Right, all to help boost that, native-like fluency.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, picture this. A spooky party, right? House on Haunted Hill.
The classic setup.
Totally. Guests are arriving, but get this, not in limos. They're in funeral cars.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. The host's wife's idea, he calls it original.
Uh-huh.
Among the guests, there's Lance Schroeder. He's a test pilot.
Yeah.
And he needs $10,000.
Okay.
Big money back then, if he's brave enough to stay all night, that is.
Ah, okay.
Then there's Ruth Bridges. She's a newspaper columnist.
Okay.
She gambles, apparently, and is desperate for money. Says she wants to write about ghosts, but,
Ulterior motives, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's a rich scenario.
It is. And from this vivid setup, you'll see just how much language insight you can get. It's more than just the plot.
Definitely. We'll grab these 4 expressions and really look at not just their meaning, but why they work in conversation.
Giving you that native touch.
Precisely.
Okay, let's jump right in. First phrase, it comes from the host himself.
Right.
Talking about his wife's, her sense of humor. He says her sense of humor is, shall we say, original.
Yeah.
It's kind of a polite jab, isn't it? What's going on with shall we say?
Exactly. Shall we say it's more than just polite. It's a fantastic little tool in conversation, almost like a subtle wink,
Okay.
You use it when you're introducing something a bit unconventional, maybe a little critical, or even provocative. But you want to cushion it, deliver it gently. It kind of invites the listener into a shared understanding, often a humorous one.
Right, so it softens the blow a bit, makes it wry.
Yeah, it lands lighter. It's key to that native nuance, that subtlety.
Okay, got it. So it's not just filler, it signals a tone. And speaking of signals, the host then points to an empty hearse.
Oh, yeah.
And says, it's empty now, but after a night in the house on Haunted Hill, who knows?
Ooh, ominous.
Totally ominous. But, can who knows sometimes sound a bit dismissive, like you don't really care about the answer.
That's a really good point. And yes, it can be used that way sometimes, like brushing off a question you don't want to answer.
Right.
But here, in this context, it's all about embracing the mystery, the uncertainty. It's incredibly natural because, life is unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying it's impossible to tell, but in a more engaging way. It draws you into the suspense.
Yeah.
Very, very common in natural speech.
Makes sense. Okay, here's where things get interesting. The test pilot, Lance Schroeder.
The brave one.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not so brave.
Well, he's offered that $10,000 to stay. And the host observes, he's a brave man, but don't you think you can be much braver if you're paid for it?
Ah, the motivation question.
Yeah, because he really needs the cash. So what does much braver add here? Why not just braver?
Good question. Be much braver really emphasizes that the situation requires a significantly higher level of courage.
Okay, like way more than usual.
Exactly. More than is typically expected, or maybe even humanly natural, without some push. It's not just slightly more brave, it's pushing the limits. For native speakers, it's a way to highlight how extreme the situation is, or, like here, to subtly comment on what's really driving the bravery, like Lance's need for money.
Right, the financial incentive makes the required bravery seem achievable, maybe.
Or at least understandable, yeah.
Okay, and finally, Ruth Bridges, the columnist.
The one who gambles.
Right. She says she's there for ghosts, but the host reveals she's also desperate for money, he adds. Gambles. Desperate for, that sounds pretty intense. Stronger than just needing money, right?
Oh, absolutely. Desperate for is a powerful phrase. It conveys real intensity, a strong, urgent need or desire.
Like a craving.
Exactly, like a craving. It's much stronger than just wanting or needing. It implies this urgency, often coming from a really tough spot. Could be physical, could be emotional.
So understanding that difference, that intensity, is important for fluency.
Crucial. It communicates a deep, pressing need. Like Ruth's situation with her gambling debts, it really paints a picture of her state of mind.
Yeah, what really strikes me is how these 4 phrases, they're not just dictionary definitions, are they? They're like baked into the story's drama and the characters.
Totally.
It just shows how much you can pick up just by listening closely, catching these nuances that make the language so alive.
Absolutely. And if you think about the bigger picture here, understanding these subtleties, it doesn't just boost your vocabulary list.
Right.
It genuinely deepens how you appreciate stories, conversations, everything around you. These little linguistic gems are everywhere.
Just waiting to be found if you listen deeply enough.
Exactly. Just beneath the surface of the plot, shaping how we see characters, how the whole narrative feels, makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mm.
All right, let's move on to the next audio clip. Just like before, we'll listen to the native sound, go through a simple explanation, and finish with a podcast review.
You've already met Watson Pritchard, a man living in mortal fear of a house, and yet he is risking his life to spend another night here. I wonder why. He says for money. This is Dr. David Trent, a psychiatrist. He claims that my ghost will help his work on hysteria. But don't you see a little touch of greed there? Around the mouth and eyes. This is Nora Manning. I picked her from the thousands of people who work for me because she needed the 10,000 more than most. Supports her whole family. Isn't she pretty? The party's starting now, and you have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill.
Pretty spooky, isn't it? The narrator has just introduced the guests at the party. Now let's go through them one by one together.
You've already met Watson Pritchard, a man living in mortal fear of a house, and yet he is risking his life to spend another night here. I wonder why. He says for money.
You've already met Watson Pritchard. He is a man living in mortal fear of a house. The phrase mortal fear means the deepest kind of fear, the kind of fear connected with death. In other words, he is absolutely terrified of this house. And yet, he is risking his life to spend another night here. The expression is risking his life means he is doing something extremely dangerous, something that could even cause his death. So we can hear the contrast. He is full of fear, and yet he still chooses to put himself in danger. The narrator says, "I wonder why." The word wonder in this sense means to be curious, to question something in your mind. Here, the speaker is saying, "I'm curious why he would do such a thing." And then we learn the reason. He says for money. The word money here is simple but powerful. It tells us that despite his terror, he is motivated by the possibility of financial reward. So, altogether, the meaning is this. Watson Pritchard is terribly afraid of the haunted house, but because of money, he is risking his life to stay another night inside.
This is Dr. David Trent, a psychiatrist. He claims that my ghost will help his work on hysteria. But don't you see a little touch of greed there? Around the mouth and eyes.
This is Dr. David Trent, a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a doctor who studies the mind and treats mental illnesses. So right away, we know that his interest in the haunted house is connected to psychology. He claims that my ghosts will help his work on hysteria. The word claims means to say something is true, but without proof. It's not certain, it's just what he says. And hysteria is a very old psychological term. It describes extreme fear, nervousness, or uncontrolled emotion. So Dr. Trent says the presence of these ghosts will support his research. But the narrator asks, "Don't you see a little touch of greed there around the mouth and eyes?" The phrase "a little touch of greed" means just a small sign, a hint, that someone is acting out of selfish desire for money or power. It's not spoken directly, but you can see it in his expression. So in this short description, we meet Dr. Trent. He says he is here for science, for his work as a psychiatrist, but the narrator suggests there may be something else. A little touch of greed, motivating him too.
This is Nora Manning. I picked her from the thousands of people who work for me because she needed the 10,000 more than most. Supports her whole family. Isn't she pretty?
This is Nora Manning. The narrator says, I picked her from the thousands of people who work for me. The phrase picked her simply means chose her. It has a casual tone, as if he selected her personally from a very large group. Why did he choose her? Because she needed the $10,000 more than most. The expression more than most means that, compared to other people, her need was greater. So the money is not just extra for her. It's essential, the narrator adds, supports her whole family. This means Nora is responsible for taking care of everyone at home, not just herself. She earns money to provide for her entire family. And then he asks, isn't she pretty? Here, the tone changes from practical to almost personal, as if her appearance also plays a role in why she was chosen. So together, this description tells us, Nora Manning is not only working hard to support her whole family, she also desperately needs the prize money more than most. And that makes her one of the key people in this dangerous challenge.
The party's starting now, and you have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill.
The narrator says, the party's starting now, and you have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill. The key phrase here is have until midnight to find. This means there is a clear time limit. The guests can only search, explore, or survive until the clock strikes 12. After that moment, the chance is over. Notice how this phrase creates tension. The words have until tell us that time is running and it will eventually run out. Adding midnight makes it even more dramatic, because midnight is often linked with danger, mystery, and the unknown. So in simple words, the line means, the challenge begins now, and everyone must face the haunted house before midnight comes.
All right, now that you've heard the explanation, let's listen to the podcaster's review.
Welcome to the deep dive. So today, we're embarking on, a really fascinating mission, actually.
Oh, yeah. What have we got?
We're going to unpack how a seemingly simple narrative can be, like an absolute gold mine of powerful everyday English expressions.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're using insights from a short classic script. You might know it features characters like Watson Pritchard, Dr. David Trent, Nora Manning.
The whole Haunted Hill setup with the midnight deadline looming.
Exactly that one. And our goal isn't just to, define the phrases, but to really get into their hidden depths, understand why they're so effective.
Right. It's quite remarkable, isn't it, how a story like that is just packed with these little linguistic gems.
Really?
Things we use all the time, maybe without even thinking about the precision they offer, the psychological insight.
Absolutely. So let's start with Dr. Trent. The psychiatrist claims his work is all about helping with hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
But the script, the narrator points out, don't you see a little touch of greed there around the mouth and eyes?
Ah, yes. A little touch of greed. Such a great line.
It is, isn't it? What is it about that phrasing specifically? Why is that so impactful? Maybe even a bit unsettling.
Well, I think what's really illuminating there is how perfectly it captures our intuition, our ability to sense hidden motives.
Right. It's not just saying he is greedy.
Exactly. It's more subtle. It's about the precision language gives us to articulate those gut feelings, those little tells in someone's expression.
Yeah.
They can betray deeper, maybe self-serving intentions, even when someone's trying hard to project a noble image.
You see that sometimes, don't you?
Yeah.
Like someone helping with a charity, but then
you catch that little touch of greed when maybe they talk about their own compensation or, pushing for a bigger bonus under the guise of the project's success.
Mm-hmm. It speaks volumes.
Yeah.
About observation, sure, but also about maybe subtle deception.
Definitely. It's that feeling when you just know there's something more going on beneath the surface.
Okay, so from Dr. Trent's subtle self-interest, the story shifts focus. We get to Nora Manning.
Right, Nora.
And the narrator says they picked her from thousands because she needed the money more than most.
$10,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To support her whole family. Huge stakes for her.
Huge. Now, picked her from thousands. That seems pretty clear. It emphasizes a deliberate choice, right?
Yep.
Like being picked for a team.
Yep, a specific selection from a larger group. Very direct.
But what about more than most? Does that phrase ever risk sounding a little, I don't know, patronizing? Or is it purely for emphasis?
That's actually a really insightful question. Context is everything, of course. It could potentially lean that way sometimes, I suppose. But I think here, more than most, works powerfully to emphasize a comparison without sort of diminishing her individual situation.
Okay.
It's about saying the degree of truth her need is significantly higher for her than for the average person.
So it highlights the urgency, her vulnerability.
Precisely. It shows the critical nature of her financial need. The kind of desperation that would drive someone to a place like Haunted Hill.
Yeah, it adds depth. Just saying she needed money wouldn't quite capture it.
Not at all. It's like saying someone is more nervous about an exam than most. It conveys a specific, heightened level of anxiety.
Right. It really hammers home the stakes for her. It makes her choice understandable in a way.
It does. And then building on that tension.
We get that classic phrase, the one that just instantly dials up the suspense.
Let me guess.
You have until midnight to find the house on Haunted Hill.
Of course. Until midnight. It just screams urgency, doesn't it?
It really does. We've all heard variations of that in stories, maybe even setting deadlines for ourselves.
Exactly. And the power of the phrase isn't just about the specific hour, 12 a.m. It's about what it represents.
Which is?
A strict, high-stakes deadline, something that demands immediate action. It's kind of a linguistic shortcut, you know?
A shortcut to express critical timelines, even when it's not literally midnight.
Right. You might tell yourself, okay, I have until midnight to figure this out, or the whole project gets delayed, or you see it on applications, you have until midnight to submit.
Gotcha. It instantly communicates. Clock's ticking, consequences are real.
Yeah, failure isn't really an option, or at least it comes with a significant cost.
So it's amazing, really. From just this one relatively brief narrative, we've pulled out these incredibly useful, nuanced expressions. Each one adds a real layer of meaning, doesn't it, to how we communicate, how we understand things.
Absolutely. They help us articulate subtle observations about, well, human motivation, like with Trent, or precise choices, like picking Nora, and critical deadlines.
It shows how everyday language, the stuff we use all the time, is just packed with nuance.
It really is. They're not just words strung together. They're tools. Tools for articulating our most subtle takes on the world, on people.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, how many other phrases do we use every single day, kind of on autopilot, that hold a similar kind of depth, a wealth of insight just sitting there?
That's a great point. Just waiting to be uncovered if we stop and actually consider them. Something to chew on, perhaps, until our next deep dive.
That's it for today. By continuing to listen to native audio and then exploring it through various interpretations and explanations, your English skills will steadily improve. Have a great day.